I feel like we've all been there where we didn't really know how to stand our ground or say no to someone. And you might think that people pleasing makes people like you because obviously, you're pleasing people. But to be honest, you just tolerate more disrespect from other people. People will see that you're a people pleaser and automatically not like you and automatically not respect you. And I've completely been there. And honestly, it's still a part of my personality to this day. It takes conscious effort for me to stand on my boundaries, especially with the people closest to me, but it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself, and it's one of the most purest forms of self-love I've shown myself. So I get it. You clicked on this video because you're tired of being a passive person. You're tired of just letting people walk all over you. And as an ex-people pleaser, let me tell you the truth. You'll never get over people pleasing until you identify the part of yourself that is addicted to people pleasing. Because there's a selfish part about it that I'll really get into in today's podcast episode. But if you're new here, hello, this is the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. I'm your host, Natalie, and this is where I share ways I'm getting my shit together so that you can get your shit together. And for those of you coming back, last month I talked about how I was going through it, and a part of the reason I was going through it was because I felt judged. And some people in my life might get mad at me for saying this, but essentially there were people in my life who ruined a very special moment of mine and kind of made it about themselves almost. And this often happens to passive people naturally because you can't really take a stand on things that you really believe in. As a passive person, you naturally don't handle conflict well and you try to avoid it. But oftentimes, avoiding conflict actually prolongs the conflict. You might have always been called the mediator friend because naturally you were the person that people would go to kind of mediate the situation. You never really took a side in a situation because you so badly feared being judged and criticized for choosing the wrong person or really stating your opinion. With people in your life who didn't necessarily like each other, you would always try to find common ground. You have a gift of making people feel comfortable even when you're uncomfortable. You prioritize other people's comfort so much so that you neglect your own. And while it is a gift that you make people feel safe and secure, you also feel insecure. You also feel like you can't trust other people, and oftentimes it's kind of a curse in some ways too, because you'll start resenting people because they aren't there for you in the ways that you're there for them. And that's precisely because you don't let people in that way, because every single time you do, it genuinely hurts. And I feel like there's so many layers to people pleasing, which I've touched on in other videos, but being passive also means that you can't really express your emotions to people. There's an insecurity with getting vulnerable to people because you've associated vulnerability with weakness. You might even judge others for being vulnerable in a certain way because that's just not how you express your emotions. You'll kind of see it as cringe. Some of you might even have a tendency to joke about the problems in your life or the things that genuinely irritate you, which turns into passive aggression, which is not healthy, but I feel like a lot of people still do that. And the thing about passive aggressive people is they don't really realize they're being passive aggressive and they don't really see it as anything negative, right? When people are outright passive aggressive, a lot of people will judge them and say, oh my god, that's so immature. And while it is, it's also a coping mechanism. These people don't know how to be direct with their emotions because every time they have, it has backfired on them. That is an illusion because oftentimes the times they have been direct with how they felt about something, they also still let it bottle up. They weren't direct about how they felt in a constructive manner, which caused them to have these negative experiences where they had to basically scream at someone or blow up at someone in order to feel heard. Let me just say this, you don't need anyone's permission to say no. You don't need anyone's permission to have an issue with something or to feel a certain type of way. And oftentimes when you're a passive person, you have no clue how to be direct with other people because that's just not what you've been taught. And I think there is an aspect about this that goes back to childhood trauma and the things we grew up with. You might have experienced in your family dynamic, they never really addressed things, right? Everything was shoved under the rug. Nothing was ever really talked about. It was joked about and then it was forgotten about. It runs so deeply, because every single time you had a true emotion of injustice, of something was done to you that wasn't okay, you would have to just suck it up and just be okay with it. I mentioned this in another video as well, but it's like, it's either you had to be a doormat or you had to be a dick. And I know that might be a little bit harsh, but it's very true, because a lot of the times you were not taught to be active in your emotions and active in your communication. So obviously, feeling passive is going to feel like something that gratifies your ego. You're going to call yourself, I am a people pleaser, right? But what does being a people pleaser actually mean? What are you really calling yourself? Most of us realize that people pleasing behavior is not a good thing, but when people call others a people pleaser, there's an ego attached to it that's like, I could do no wrong, right? I just do everything in my power to please people, to be of service to others. I'm just such a good person. Is neglecting yourself being a good person? Or are you just used to belittling yourself and tolerating someone's mistreatment because in some way it's endearing, right? In some way, they don't hate me, they just love me. That's just the way they joke. That's just their culture. Whatever the case is. And I'm not saying you can't have these people in your life and you need to cut everyone off, because sometimes I feel like we can identify we don't have a good habit, and sometimes people will overstep our boundaries, but we let them overstep our boundaries. Let's not get it confused. We can acknowledge that aspect, but we don't acknowledge the aspect of how we play a part in our own suffering when it comes to being a passive person. Another way you can tell you're a passive person is you always have to ask other people their opinions in order to make a decision about your life. Whether it's a small opinion or a big opinion, you always include other people's opinions in whatever you choose to do, and it's to a point where it's overwhelming. Like, it's really toxic, because even if you want to do something, if someone you regard as your friend tells you that it's stupid and that you shouldn't do it, you won't do it. It's kind of funny because I feel like being a passive person makes you a little bit of like a side character energy. I don't know, because you always have to like ask other people. People always overlook you, and I know we're totally over the main character versus side character type thing, because at the end of the day, I literally walk down the street sometimes and I'm like, I'm an NPC right now. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? When you're a passive person, you're not your own individual person. You are everyone else. You need to recognize that your opinions and decisions matter, and they actually amount to something. And this is our tendency to regard people in our life that we think highly of as morally superior, like they know better than us. And it stems from insecurity. You wouldn't have to ask other people about every single decision you make in life if you weren't insecure about your decision-making process. The root of the problem is, I am incapable. How do you feel incapable? How have you taken your power away and are continuing to take your power away? I'm going to move more into solutions about how to get over this, because I know I've been rambling about the actual traits of being a passive person. I just want you guys to see your passiveness for what it really is, because oftentimes we kind of overlook it. Like, we know we're a passive person, but we don't understand where it stems from. My point is, it's not your fault. Right? Like, you were taught to be this type of person. Something you can do is start intentionally making decisions and not telling anyone, whether it's a small decision or a big decision. And this can also gauge your passiveness, because I feel like sometimes we have a harder time either making smaller or bigger decisions. You might naturally be more of an indecisive person with small things, like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna wear, I don't know what I'm gonna go eat. And I don't think that's the biggest thing in the world, but if you are passive to the point where, oh, I don't want to annoy this person because I have to get up and use the bathroom. Babe, check yourself, like check in with your psyche, because if you're so scared to like inconvenience other people, that comes from a really, really hard place of feeling like you've been an inconvenience and a burden all of your life. And I've been there, but at the end of the day, you need to put yourself in the position of the person that you're scared to inconvenience. If someone else was needing what you needed, are you completely reasonable for asking for what you need? Most of the time when it comes to, getting up and using the bathroom bathroom or inconveniencing people by saying, hey, I'm gonna be 30 minutes late, it's not that big of a deal. And it's worse to not let people know what's going on because it reflects poorly on you. Not in like the bathroom situation, like, I mean, it would reflect poorly on you if you decided to like piss your pants, but I'm talking about in more of a situation of like, you can't make it to an event or you have to arrive 30 minutes late. It's worse to just arrive 30 minutes late and not tell anybody what's going on because you were too scared to, than just letting people know up front. Start making decisions, whether they're big or small, that you literally don't ask anyone about, whether that is changing the color of your hair or starting a yoga class or changing up your morning routine. Another thing I noticed from this need to tell people everything I was doing or ask people for their opinion is I needed validation that I was doing good in some way, shape, or form because I didn't necessarily have the confidence to make the decision on my own. Another thing that being passive brings about is this feeling of I don't want to make the wrong decision, but at the end of the day, even if you make the wrong decision, at least it was your decision. I would rather make the wrong decision and have it be a decision I made from the heart, a decision that I chose to do without anybody else's influence, than a decision that everyone else convinced me to make. And sometimes it's easier to take other people's advice because you don't want to take personal responsibility for your life. Like, if that thing falls through, it's like you have someone to blame. Well, they told me to do it. You chose to do it. If you agree with someone's opinion, that opinion then becomes your opinion, especially when you make decisions based on other people's opinions. Stop having a misconception that every decision you make is under a microscope. Nobody cares. Like, even if you do mess up, nobody actually cares. But at least you messed up on your own terms. Doesn't that make a little bit more sense? Next, I really want to talk about standing up for yourself, because a lot of you clicked on this video because you need to tell someone your boundary and advocate for yourself, and you don't know how. Number one, boundaries are not conflict. They're actually a solution for conflict. It's a preventative measure. Your lack of boundaries has gotten you in the position where other people are stepping on you. Whether they're aware of it or not, you are also a part of your own suffering. You are not a victim. And I'm talking about in most situations. I'm talking about in situations where you just didn't set a boundary you knew you needed to set. Whose fault really is that? Can you really blame that person for not understanding that you had a boundary or you felt some type of way about it? You are entitled to just say no and that you don't want to do something. There doesn't have to be an explanation oftentimes, and when you give an explanation, it's out of courtesy, not necessity. So let's get that out of the way first and foremost. When it comes to standing up for yourself, that doesn't mean you have to cuss someone out. Back to what I was saying earlier, you don't have to be either a doormat or a dick. You don't just have to let people walk all over you or tell them to fuck off. Like, there's a middle ground. And one thing I've been learning is sometimes that middle ground doesn't even have to be a conversation. It can just be the lack of your presence. I do think that you should have a conversation though, but if someone is severely disrespecting you, sometimes a conversation wouldn't even be productive for you to have, because a lot of people don't actually care about the reason behind your boundary. They're not listening to you. They are hearing you in order to respond and invalidate you. They're not seeking to understand. They're seeking to be understood. They're seeking to get whatever they were getting out of you. And now that you've woken up to the fact that you are not okay with it anymore, they are going to try to guilt you into doing it again. Again, take it as it resonates. There's so much nuance, but those are not people you want in your life. The people who are mad when you set boundaries are those who benefited when you didn't have them. Their reaction to you setting a boundary is misplaced anger for whatever they were getting out of you. Do you really want to argue with someone on whether you are deserving of respect? Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes things don't really need to be talked about. But in situations where you're just scared to like say, hey, I don't really like what you're doing, but you're still my friend, here's what you do. Ask for clarity. Ask about their intention behind their action, because if they were genuinely unaware that their action is hurting you, then that is a conversation to be had in of itself, because they were clearly unaware of your boundaries. That way, when you go into the situation, this person isn't going to have their guard up and automatically be on attack mode and invalidation mode. If it pushes to that point, it obviously means that they are not willing to talk to you about something and they don't respect your boundaries, okay? They just don't respect it. If someone is being plain out mean to you, I needed to add this in because this question will put someone in their place without being aggressive in the conversation. Are you being helpful or hurtful? Are you being constructive or are you being destructive? Is what you're saying to me meant to help me or hurt me? Because I promise you, a lot of people, when they are starting to be defensive about something, especially when you set boundaries, it's because they have been used to disrespecting you and they have been used to the sly comments and the passive aggression, especially if you're dealing with a person who doesn't know how to communicate. Being passive aggressive back to someone will never work because they are just going to go into victimization mode. They are just going to go into, oh, poor me mode. You look at how you hurt me. Despite the fact that they were the one that started it and they instigated it, they will flip it onto you and now all of a sudden you're the bad person. You're arguing over whether your boundary that you were trying to set is even valid or not because their feelings were hurt. When you ask a person this question, it really allows you to scope the scene of if they're a person that's receptive to what you're saying or if they're just trying to be heard. They're not trying to listen to you. I just wanted to add that in real quick because it's a very powerful tool, especially for passive people, because we can tend to not call out disrespect when we see it. Because as a passive person myself, it's very difficult for me to be very direct with someone when they're disrespecting me. And this is a great question to call someone out on their negative behavior and also ask them to change, ask them to kind of come correct or don't come at all. But when you ask for clarity, read them, okay? You can tell if someone is lying to you or trying to avoid the question and say, oh, it was literally nothing. You don't have anything to worry about. Like, I wasn't talking to them about you. I was just saying like this thing. Like, I wasn't talking shit about you, right? I was just like mentioning this situation. You can kind of have a bullshit detector. And then when you go in to confront them, you are direct about what the issue actually is. I don't like you doing this, so in the future, you should do this. It isn't asking them for permission, it's telling them that they should treat you a certain way. It is a clear boundary of how you do and do not want to be treated. And I know it's scary and you can make up so many excuses in your head of like why you shouldn't do it, but I just can't stand up for myself. That's just too hard to do. Okay, then you're weak. Then you're weak and you don't even respect yourself. So why would other people respect you? And I understand that's harsh. Natalie, that's so mean. Okay, it's true. It's true. In the real world, people cannot read your life. People cannot understand exactly what you do and don't like unless you tell them. Why are you treating yourself like you're worth nothing? Why are you treating yourself? It's like this, right? You know Ross's clearance rack with all of the purses that nobody wants and that have been dropped on the floor multiple times and have like marker stains from like one random kid drawing on it when its mom was looking at purses. Like, that's what you're treating yourself as when you're a Birkin, babe. You are literally behind a glass door. 3 security guards have to find the keys to get you out. You have to hold yourself with gloves. You're worth so much, and yet you're treating yourself like you're this shitty Ross purse that nobody wants. Like, why are you treating yourself like you are worth less than you are? Because that Birkin bag, that Louis Vuitton, they have to be behind glass doors, or else people are going to steal them because they know how much they're worth. Other people see your value, but without that glass door, without your own protective mechanisms, without the fact that you stand up for yourself, you're nothing, right? You're going to be stepped all over. People are going to regard you as someone who isn't worth anything because you don't think you're worth anything. And so small actions lead to bigger ones. Being active with yourself and direct with how you really feel can help and reveal how other people want to treat you. Don't talk to yourself badly, like at all. Do not talk to yourself badly. Remove any type of negative self-talk from your vocabulary. Because when other people disrespect you, you'll be okay with it because, oh, haha, I just hate myself. I'm just so stupid. Like, this is how you talk on a regular basis. Of course, when other people say, oh my God, you're so stupid. Like, why would you even think that? Like, of course, when people are showing you blatant disrespect, you're going to think, oh, that's fine because you talk that way to yourself. Of course, you're going to be a passive person when you're passive to your own thoughts about yourself. You're not active in telling yourself, no, I am worthy. I am deserving of respect. I am an amazing friend, and anyone who has me in their life is blessed because I put my people on. And that's what I had to realize as of recently because, like, I do so much for other people and I expect it in return. And sometimes that leaves me feeling resentful because my intentions for helping other people weren't, like, all the way pure. And that's okay. It's okay to, like, expect something back. It's okay to have standards in friendships, but also communicate those standards and communicate when you're upset. Like, it's okay to be upset at someone. That doesn't mean they're going to leave your life. And if they do, that person was just meant to be in your life for a season. The last piece of advice I want to give is when someone is being passive aggressive to you or just outright rude, it's very important to keep your cool. A lot of the times, passive aggressive people or rude people in general, they will try to get a reaction out of you, but only respond to the words someone says to you. Don't respond and talk about the tone and, like, I don't like your tone and blah, 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 because oftentimes this person will just go into gaslighting you. All you have to respond with is, what do you mean by that? I think oftentimes people who try to do sly jabs at you, they don't think you're going to say anything about it because, again, passive people often get walked over. They always are made into the inside joke or whatever the case is. Use nuance, but oftentimes people will backtrack. And then that's when you can go into, yeah, I don't like how you said that. That was not okay. That's when they learn to back off and actually respect your boundaries if they end up doing that. If not, just don't have people around you who communicate in that way. But sometimes, obviously, there's coworkers, there's situations in life where you're going to have to deal with passive aggressive people. And sometimes that passive aggressive person is yourself, and you need to check yourself when you are not understanding why something is irritating you and deciding to take it out on a person aggressively instead of being direct with what the actual problem is. Instead of being passive aggressive back to a person, be active aggressive. Like, oftentimes when people are put right in the spot that they put themselves in and tried to put you in, they finally recognize what they're doing to you. That, or they reveal their true colors and they dig themselves a grave. The point of this video is don't be afraid to lose people in your life due to their disrespect. Don't tolerate disrespect just because you're a passive person. Work to be more active with yourself and direct with yourself. That way, when someone is being indirect and rude towards you, you know how to maneuver. Additionally, I say this in almost every video, accept people as they are, place them where they belong. Sometimes a conversation isn't even necessary because this person isn't even doing anything for you in your life. If it's a relationship in your life that you genuinely enjoy and a friendship or a connection or whatever that's worth pouring into and worth getting vulnerable for, I think you should push yourself outside your comfort zone and tell people how you actually feel. Don't try to relate to something that you are emotionally above, because some people just want to bring you down to their level. With that being said, you guys, thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. Let me know down in the comments what you related to and what videos you would like to see next. This is something I've been relating to recently because I've had to address certain parts of myself that are still there from being a passive person, being more of a people pleaser, or, shutting down is my safe space sometimes, and it's not a healthy coping mechanism. So we're all learning out here, we're all trying. I hope this video was of use to you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out my social medias, do all the things to push me out into the algorithm. I really appreciate it. Bye, y'all.